I forgot that she teaches 2 classes today.
Oh, you mean on the midterm?
Yeah, I'm getting to
Thank you.
Can I have one of the Gemara? Can I have one of Rabbi Dubov's?
I'll take one.
Thank you. Are we doing this?
No, it's not Gemara. This is Moshiach Geulah, but it's Gemara on Mashiach. That's what it is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's like I said, that the source where you can find details about Moshiach Geulah is number one, the source of all sources is in Tanakh, in the books of the prophets. Then we studied Rambam, which is how it's brought down in Halacha. But whatever the Rambam writes comes from Gemara, Midrashim. So we're going to do Gemara now. And again, with the introduction that a lot of the things, in fact, probably most of the things that are written here are understood in more of a metaphoric way. And there's so many different Mefarshim commentaries that go into explaining what is the metaphor, what is it alluding to, what does it really mean, or maybe it's literal. So we'll deal with each thing as we go along. I'm not going to do every single page, every single line. Some of them are harder to follow. I'm not to God with you, but I'll start with page 97A2. And the last line in the first column. One of the things you'll see here over and over in different ways, in different words, is contrary to the way one would imagine that before Mashiach comes, things should be getting better and better and better, and that wouldn't be a bad idea. But if you see things happening that are not positive, or maybe even worse than before, to many people, it's like, how could you tell me Mashiach is coming? And how could you tell me Mashiach is imminent when you see some crazy things going on? And some of them are maybe unprecedented crazy things. When you learn the Gemara, you see actually that there is a possibility, because it could happen in many different ways. But one of the ways that could happen is before Mashiach comes, we will see things going down before they go up. The explanation to this is, at least whether it's an explanation or something we can compare it to, is the mashal that's used is a seed. When you put a seed in the ground and you want the seed to grow into a tree, there's a certain stage where the seed is perfect, you put it into the ground, and in the ground it sort of decomposes and it gets absorbed in the soil. And only then does the tree grow. So there's a certain principle that when you have a certain substance and you want something totally different, naturally totally better to come out of that same substance, it has to go through a stage first where it decays, and then it becomes the bigger, the better substance. So in a sense, the same as with Mashiach, the world will reach a point where things will decay, things will get worse before they'll get better. And these are some of the things that the Gemara is describing here. So let's turn, again, page 97A2. There are 2 columns. The bottom are notes, which you can read on your own, very interesting notes. Some of them I will discuss in class. But I'm going to do the last line in the first column. So basically, the Gemara is explaining different verses that are found either in Tehillim or other places in Chumash or places in Tanakh, in the books of our prophets. This is a verse that's actually found in Tehillim, chapter 89. And it says these words, Asher cherfu evecha Hashem, your enemies have taunted you, Hashem. Or actually, cherfu, some people translate as blaspheming Hashem. Asher cherfu ikros Mashiachecha. And they have taunted, or they're blaspheming the footsteps of Mashiach. And one of the ways this is explained to me is that before Mashiach comes, or when you even already hear the footsteps of Mashiach, there'll be people that'll be excited. Footsteps means you don't see the person. You just hear somebody, you hear noise, you hear footsteps. So you know that the person is coming. So on one hand, there'll be people be very excited. On the other hand, there'll be people that'll be not only not excited, but they'll actually be denying it, making fun of it, taunting those people that believe in it. And that's one of the signs of what the world will look like when Mashiach comes. Remember, we said that there was no time given when Mashiach is going to come. But we were given signs of what the world will look like close to the time that Mashiach will be revealed. So this is one thing. And by the way, we have a precedent to this. And next week, we'll be learning about this in the Chumash. Next week is a new Chumash, Parsha Shmos. And it tells us that when Moshe Rabbeinu came to the Jews to tell them, you're going out of Egypt, there were those that believed him and those that didn't believe him. And not only didn't believe him, there were people that became against him. And they said, because if you're making a commotion about leaving Egypt, we're getting into trouble. If you're ready, if you know the Parsha, fine. If not, I'll give you the preview. What happened was that they came to Paro and they said, I have a message from Hashem, Moshe and Aaron, and its time has come to let the Jews leave Mitzrayim. And Paro, what was his reaction? He says, I don't know who this God of yours is, and I don't have to listen to him. And he said, apparently you guys aren't working hard enough, and that's why you're thinking about all this nonsense of going out. So now I'm going to make you work harder than before. And it says when Moshe came out of Paro's, one of the visits that he visited the palace, and when he came out of the palace, he was attacked by Dasan and Abiram, and I guess other Jews, screaming at him, what are you doing? Look what you did. You ruined our image in the eyes of Paro, and now he's making his work happen when Mashiach comes. Then the Gemara goes on with more things. Tanya, we've learned. Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Rabbi Yehuda says, I'm reading now the second column. So on page 97A2.
Not the notes.
Not the notes, I'm only reading on top, yeah. If there's anything from the notes, I'll just say it orally, but inside we'll be reading from the top. Also, I just want to explain what does it mean 9782. So first of all, Gemara has number, every page has a number. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but the first page in Gemara is Beis, not Aleph. It starts with Beis. There is no Aleph. Why is no Aleph? I don't know, I've heard different answers given, but they say that one of the answers are to indicate that no matter how much you learn, you haven't begun the Aleph. So you start with Beis, and there's a page number only on one side. So the other side is identified as page number 10, side 1 or side 2. So all the Gemaras, and this is a copy of the Art Scroll Gemara, when they write page 97, there's 97A, which is the first side, or 97B, which is the second side. The reason why they have the little number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is because the amount that fits in with the English translation is more than just one side. Like there's 4 sheets or 5 sheets for that one side. So this is just the Art Scroll part to know it's page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the translation. But the original Gemara only has 2 sides, and every page is identified by the number and the side, A or B. So, Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, Rabbi Yehuda said, the generation when the son of David will come, I think we know already by now that the term the son of David is another way of referring to Mashiach. Sometimes it's called Mashiach, and sometimes it's called the son of David, sometimes it's called the descendant of David. What does it say? that when Mashiach will come, in other words, that time right before his coming, Beis Vad Yilas Nus, meeting places will be used for inappropriate activity, not tznizik activity. And the way the commentaries explain it is that there'll be a time that so many people will stop studying Torah that the halls and the places that they used to have for Torah study will become empty. And once they become empty, all sorts of inappropriate people will use it for inappropriate activity. So it's just a sign that at that time, the amount of people, amount of men that will be wanting to study Torah will go down to the point that the Torah buildings will become empty, those buildings that were designated for Torah. Another thing, Hagolol Yechariv, the Galilee will lay waste. So some people believe this is referring to certain places in Israel that will be desolate. Nobody will be living there. Hagavlon Yesham, the Gavlon will be desolate, which is another place in Israel. The people of the border will wander from town to town and not be granted favor, which means, where some Farshim explain it, it depends how you translate, interpret the word. Some explain it's referring to scribes who write Torah scrolls and they write tefillin and they write mezuzahs, that they're going to be going from place to place trying to sell their merchandise, and people won't be interested in buying it. The wisdom of scholars will decay, and those who fear sin will be despised, rather than the way it was in earlier generations, that if somebody's a Torah scholar, they were respected, and if somebody was God-fearing, they were respected. In that time, things will go down so low that if a person fears God, they'll be laughed at and they'll be despised. People won't like them. The face of the generation will be like the face of a dog. What's the problem with the dog? So there's two, in the notes say they bring two opinions, and there's more opinions. One opinion is that a dog represents usually devotion. A dog is very devoted to its master. So there'll be so much hypocrisy in those days that people will pretend that they're devoted and dedicated. And in reality, instead of being your friends, they're really your enemies. And a lot of people will experience this, which is one of the things we hear about today. It's very hard to get a good friend that you can truly trust. There's another interpretation that's referring to the leadership. And they say an interesting thing about a dog is when a person is walking with their dog, who walks ahead, the person or the dog? The dog. So it looks like the dog is leading you, but then the dog turns around to see which way you want to go, and that's the direction it goes. So the leaders in that time will be so corrupt, instead of leading people in the direction they're supposed to go, they're going to look and to see what do the people want, and that's the way they're going to lead them, which is not what a leader is all about. A leader is supposed to lead people in the right direction, lead them to do the right things. And unfortunately, a corrupt leader is someone that all they want to be popular, they want to get voted in, they want to have their position politically, and therefore, whether it's right or wrong is not what matters. What matters is what's going to get me the most votes. So I think we all understand what that is. So that's another thing about the leadership in the time of Mashiach, how negative that would be. Then it says, and the truth will be absent. Truth will be absent means it's based on a verse, but tihi ha'emes nederes v'sar meira mishtelo. It says the truth will be absent, and that turns away from evil, and those who turn away from evil will become foolish. In other words, people won't be truthful anymore. They're very hard to find someone who's truthful and honest. And those people who will be that way will actually be considered fools. Instead of, again, respecting them and looking up to them and being awed by them that they're so truthful, they'll be put down and be considered like fools. Let's turn the page. Now the Gemara says there's another meaning to these words. Again, the words in the Hebrew, which is the pasuk, is on top of the page. We're starting with the column on the left side. Vatihi ha'emes nederes. What is the meaning of the words? And the truth will be absent. So the Gemara says the word nederes, besides the definition of absence, can have another definition. It means the groups. What does it mean, groups? So in the Academy of Rav, they said the following: it teaches us the truth will be formed into groups and go away, which means that those people who are truthful and are honest will be so much rejected by the mainstream community that they'll be sticking together with each other, and they'll sort of distance themselves from others because everybody will look down at them and ridicule them for being honest and truthful. They'll be considered fools, like you said before. What does it mean, B'sar Mira Mishtoilel, that those who turn away from evil will be foolish? So the Academy of Reb Shila said, this means that whoever turns away from evil, again, the same thing, will be considered foolish by the rest of the people. Next paragraph. Being that he's talking about the subject of truth, he brings an interesting story about truth. Omar Rava said, at first I used to say, there's no truth in the world. Wait a second, imagine this is 1,500 years ago. So it was already a time where they were saying there's no truth in the world. People aren't being honest. People aren't being truthful. But then I met a certain rabbi, and he said to me, and this rabbi's name is Rav Tovus. And he said to me that even if they would give me all the riches in the world, I would never tell a lie. And he said it's based on a story, an incident that happened with him. He related the following story to me. One time I visited a certain town, and the name of the town is Kushta. Kushta is a word in Aramaic. And what does it mean in Aramaic? It means truth. And the reason why they gave the town the name Kushta, because it was exceptional in this area that nobody who lived there would ever lie. Every single person who lived in this town was totally, completely truthful. And in fact, none of the people in that town ever died before their time. They all died at old age. Nobody died at a young age. And apparently this was a reward for the fact that they never told a lie. Again, some of the commentaries explain, what does that mean? When a person is born, Hashem designates that they're going to live X amount of years. Sometimes people can do things, God forbid, that because of that, they're not able to live the full amount of years that was designated for them. But these people, in the merit of the fact that they never lied and they always said the truth, Hashem granted everyone their full life. But then it says that this rabbi said, I married a woman from that city. And he had 2 sons. One day, his wife was sitting in the house and she was washing her hair. And a neighbor came in and knocked on the door and said she wants to speak to his wife. So he was thinking that it's not proper to tell them his wife is washing her hair. He didn't feel it was appropriate. So he said to her, she's not here. And after that, 2 of his sons died. The people of that town came to him and said to him, what happened? Nobody dies here before time. How could it happen? And he told them what happened, that he lied. So they said to him, we beg you, please leave our town and don't incite death against the people living in this town. And he had to move. So he said he'll never ever in his life say a lie. So there's something very interesting here. I want to give out the sheet to explain it. Nili, do you mind doing the hard work? Labor, yeah. Bring this out. Thank you. One of the commentaries explained it this way. When Hashem, remember we learned in Pirkei Avos, those who were here maybe 2 weeks ago, we learned in Pirkei Avos, we had a whole Mishnah about how the world stands on three things, and the three things was justice, truth, and peace. So when we came to the subject of truth, we brought different quotes and phrases from Gemara. And one of them is that Hashem's seal is emes, which means just like a king has a seal, and when he gives any kind of message or verdict or any kind of order, he puts a seal on it, and that certifies that these are his words. And also the seal makes it's confirmed, it's endorsed. Hashem also has a seal, and his seal is emes. Hashem's name is emes, which all means that Hashem is all identified, not just he's truthful, he's identified and characterized by this inyan of emes. So they point out that when Hashem created the world and gave life to the world, he did it with emes. So look at the first three words. This is the first words in the entire Chumash. This is the beginning of the story of creation. Bereshis, the last letter is a Saf, underlined, right? Bara, the last letter is Aleph. Elokim, the last letter is Mem. What does it spell? Emes, Aleph, Mem, Saf. Turn to the other side of the sheet. This is the last verse where Hashem, where the Torah completes the story of creation. It ends with this verse. Shabbos, and now Hashem rested. So again, it says, Hashem abstained from all the work that he created to do. Bara ends with an Aleph, Elokim ends with a Mem, and Asos ends with a Saf. Again, the three letters are Emes. In other words, the first word in the beginning of creation is Emes. The last words at the end of creation is Emes. So Hashem created the world, which means he gave life to the world, to humans and to animals, through the sort of the conduit of Emes. So if God forbid someone is lacking in emes, then unfortunately they'll also be lacking in life, because Hashem gives life to the world. That's emes. And then they point out another interesting thing is that the word emes, if you take out the aleph from the word, what does it spell? Yes, which means the opposite of life, indicating that if you take out aleph is the smallest letter, means number one. If you take out one iota of truth, then you're going to be lacking, God forbid, in life. So that's why in this town where the people were not truthful, that is what happened to them. Okay, let's continue the next paragraph. Tanya, it was taught in a brisa. Reb Noroi said, the generation that Ben David is going to come, in other words, the time which is going to be the generation that is about to arrive, we're going to see that the young people will shame the old people. In other words, normally, this is talking about the social order, so to speak, of that time will be so bad, will be so decayed, that normally young people respect the elders. But in this case, the young people will embarrass and insult older people. And not only that, the older people the opposite will happen. They'll be respecting the younger people. A daughter will rise against her mother, and a daughter-in-law will rise against her mother-in-law. Literally, it means, again, like the young people want to honor older people, children want to honor their parents. And we're talking about, of course, in normal circumstances, in normal situations, there are situations where the Torah tells us to distance ourselves if the parents are destructive in any way. But generally speaking, it's one of the 10 commandments. What could be more than that? You must honor your parents. So at that time, it will be a time where people won't honor the elderly, they won't honor the mother, they won't honor the father, daughter-in-law won't honor her mother-in-law. But it's interesting, the words are, they'll stand up to them. So, you know how the Rebbe always likes to turn things around in a positive way. So the Rebbe says, it's also alluding to another thing, that when Mashiach will come, the older generation are not going to be observing Torah mitzvahs, but the younger generation will turn that around and they will do Torah mitzvahs. The father or the mother won't be doing Torah mitzvahs, but the children will stand up to them and they will do Torah mitzvahs. and the same with the daughter and the mother and the daughter-in-law and her mother-in-law. And eventually they will inspire their parents, or the younger will inspire the older to follow suit. So actually, even though it appears on the surface like terrible things are going to happen, but in reality, you can also have the interpretation that it'll be a positive thing that'll happen. And then it says, no, that's the next piece. Okay, so that's this piece. Now we'll turn the page and we'll do one more piece, which says start and end. So we're just going to do that piece. Page 97A4. Tanu Rabbanu, our sages taught us. Again, it takes a pasuk, a verse, and explains how that verse would be interpreted and what it means about the times of Mashiach. There's a verse that says these words, Ki Yodin Hashem Amay, Hashem will judge his people. He will bring the redemption when he sees that the hand is going and no one is being protected or helped. Which means that it's saying there'll be a time where the Jewish people will be so, unfortunately, distant from Torah mitzvahs, and Hashem will send other nations to punish them for that. And things will be at a point, at such a low point, that Hashem will see at such a low point, and then there'll be no choice, because ultimately we won't ever get lost. So Hashem will then bring the redemption. Again, another indication, whether it's this literal implication or another one, of how things will actually decay before they will become good. Another example of how things will go wrong is this verse teaches us that the son of David will not come until the informers have become numerous. What is that? We did this also, we had this in our sheets of Pirkei Avos, that one of the things which is considered an extremely negative thing is an informer. What's an informer? Two Jews aren't getting along, but one Jew has a complaint against another Jew, and rather than working it out between themselves, which would be the best, the second best is, if you can't work it out between yourselves, try to find a mediator. And if that doesn't help, then you go to a bezdin, which means you go to a court of rabbis, and you ask them to rule who's right, who's wrong, and we'll conduct ourselves according to that. An informer is somebody that doesn't choose to follow what the Torah says, but instead goes to the authorities of the country, the government, the city, police, whoever it is, and informs that this and this person did something wrong, and they get involved, and they punish that person or arrest him, or sometimes even worse. In fact, as we know, that's how the Beis Hamikdash got destroyed. The Gemara says that the Beis Hamikdash got destroyed because there was a lot of hate between people. But what was the last straw that broke the camel's back? That finally Hashem decided that they're not deserving to have a Beis Hamikdash? Was a similar story to this. So we heard the story once, and we can hear it many times because it is mentioned over and over again to learn how we shouldn't follow that path. That there was a man who was making a party, and it appears to be he was a prominent person, and he made a big party. The prominent people and rabbis and leaders were coming to the party, and he sent his messenger to invite a man whose name was Kamsa. That was his friend. But he also had another person who was his enemy, and his name was similar. His name was Bar Kamsa. And the messenger made a little mistake, and that's how Beis Hamikdash got destroyed. Instead of inviting Kamsa, he invited the enemy, which is Bar Kamsa. He's sitting by the party, and he sees his enemy sitting there, and he says, "What are you doing here?" And the enemy said that you invited me, so there was a mistake. Just leave. And he says, "Please don't embarrass me in front of everyone. I'll pay you for all the food that I'll eat." So he said, "No, I'm not interested. Just get out of here." And he said, "I'll pay you for half of the expenses of the whole entire party." He says, "I'm not interested. I want you out." And then finally he offered, "I'll pay you all the expenses for the whole party. Just don't embarrass me. Don't humiliate me." And he said, "I don't want to hear any more." He grabbed him by his collar and he pulled him out as if he was a little child or something. and he was humiliated, and he was upset that no one stopped him, especially the rabbis didn't stop him. And what did he do? He went straight to the Roman emperor, and he said to him, listen, I'm a Jew, I live amongst the Jews, and I want to inform you that they're planning a revolution against the Roman Empire and against the emperor. And the Roman emperor decided then that he's going to destroy the Beis Hamikdash and conquer Yerushalayim. And basically that's what led to the destruction, is informing. And another thing, we find the precedent in Egypt. In Egypt, there's also a story, and it's also in next week's Parsha, and that is that before the Jews went out of Egypt, there were informers. What were their names? These are two famous guys, or infamous, they were always causing trouble, Dasan and Aviram. So if you don't remember the story, I'll remind you, maybe some of you never heard it, but it's in the Chumash, that Moshe Rabbeinu, before anything happened yet, before he was yet appointed to take the Jews out of Egypt, he was walking down one of the streets and he sees two Jews getting into a fight. And one of them lifted his hand to hit the other Jew. And he said to him, you Russia, you wicked person, why are you hitting your friend? And he got very upset, he got very offended that he's telling him what to do. And he said, I saw what you did yesterday. The day before, one of the Egyptian guards was beating a Jew and for no reason at all. And the person who did this, Moshe Rabbeinu, said something. He did something with his power, spiritual power. And as a result of that, the Egyptian died. Now, to kill an Egyptian guard is an offense against the country. And he covered him with sand, nobody should know. But these people were there when it happened. So they said to him, you want to kill us like you killed that person? We'll let them know what you did. And that's what they did. They went and informed that Moshe Rabbeinu killed an Egyptian guard. When Moshe Rabbeinu heard that, he was captured and they wanted to kill him. And it was only a miracle that saved his life. It's in Gemara, the Medrash says that the guy who killed him was an executor, used an axe, and he was able to chop off his head, but instead the Eibishter made a miracle that his neck became like as hard as a piece of marble, and the axe broke, and the executor actually died because it bounced back on him. And Moshe Rabbeinu ran away to save his life. So that means that, in fact, Moshe Rabbeinu was saying to Hashem, maybe to inform against the Jew that he should be arrested or be punished. But nevertheless, this is what happened. So it seems it's saying here, before Mashiach comes, we'll see something similar. Instead of people following what the Torah says, going to sages or rabbis that will give us the Torah ruling, they'll go to the secularists to use that power, which is considered a sort of a slap in the face to Torah. Imagine Hashem says, I'm giving you the Torah, I'm giving you the system, how you should live and what should be law and order. And I say to Hashem, I'm not interested in what you're giving me, I want to use the government's approach. And then based on that, I go and I arrest somebody, get him into jail or get him pay fines. All this is considered informing. So Mashiach will come, we'll see that there's going to be sort of an increase in people that inform one against each other. Another opinion says it means that the Torah will be very another person's first, which means they'll longer years, and it's still not happening. They're going to know that what's the point? We don't believe in this anymore. In other words, when you see people not believing in Mashiach, that's actually a sign, according to the Gemara, that that's what's going to happen before Mashiach comes. Then the Gemara relates the story. Reb Zera once saw different rabbis having a discussion about the subject of Mashiach. And he said to them, please, I beg you, don't delay his coming. Why? Because it says there are three things that come, the Hesach Hadas. Hesach Hadas means totally unexpected. One is Mashiach, one is finding a lost object, and one is a scorpion. What does that mean? Certain animals, if they attack, before they attack, you can see that they're getting ready to attack. At least you have some ability to escape. Apparently, a scorpion is something which works very quietly, and all of a sudden, a person gets bitten. Mitzvah means a lost object. When you want to earn money, you go to work. You don't do something to find lost objects. If you find it, you find it. It comes unexpected. You're walking down the street, and you see something precious on the floor. You see a diamond on the floor. You see money on the floor. Mashiach will also come sort of suddenly. We about Mashiach. I don't talk about giving specific dates and saying, on this day is coming. Because then if you won't come, people will sort of interpretation to this. It says three things: Mashiach, the scorpion, and finding a lost object. For some people, when they hear Mashiach is coming, it'll be like a scorpion bit them. And for some people, it'll be like finding a lost object. In other words, those who are unfortunately not in a good place and they hear Mashiach is coming, they're going to be upset. They'll feel like that who knows what's going to happen to them. And those that are in a good place and they hear Mashiach is coming, they'll be all excited. But the truth is, no one should be thinking, I'm not perfect, so maybe I should be worried about Mashiach coming. The truth is, when Mashiach comes, it'll be the biggest benefit for every single person and the biggest bracha for every single person. And no matter how good you think you'll be able to accomplish things before he comes, it'll be hundreds of times better when he does come. So unfortunately, some people are worried. I'm going to have a talk about this also. People are worried what's going to happen when he comes. Maybe things will change and I'll be losing out. There'll be nothing we'll be losing out. We'll only be gaining. And the only thing you'll lose are things that are negative, which we all want to lose that. You know, there's that famous song where they sing Mashiach, 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 ay, 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 ay. So they say as a joke, when some people hear Mashiach, they scream, oh, Mashiach, Mashiach, Mashiach. And other people go, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. They're worried. That's the scorpion or the lost object. Okay, Good Shabbos, everybody.
Thank you.